Okay.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 USDA Data Users Meeting. My name is Joe Parsons. I serve as chair of the NASS Agricultural Statistics Board and will be serving as your moderator for this event. We're glad you're on the call and look forward to sharing our programs with you. We appreciate the opportunity to receive feedback on our products and services and to discuss recent and pending program changes. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. We're offering closed captioning to those who find it difficult to hear the discussion. You'll find the closed captioning on the ribbon at the bottom of the screen. As we've done in the past, recordings, slides, and Q&A transcripts will be available on our website after the meeting. If for some unforeseen event or technical problem occurs, we'll try to deal with it quickly. If we're unable to remedy the issue and need to end and restart, we'll communicate with each of you via your email from the registration, likely with a new link to resume the meeting. Hopefully, this won't be necessary. The silver lining of having a virtual event is increased participation. We have nearly 4 times our typical in-person registration. We're excited about that. We will, of course, dispense with introductions, but we do request that you share your name and organization as you offer questions in the breakout sessions and in the open session tomorrow. Speaking of questions, at the bottom of the screen on the ribbon, there's a Q&A button to post questions. There's also a chat window, which we will monitor for technical issues and post links to files and such as needed. There's also an option to raise your hand if you're having difficulty, and we can try to help. If you're having difficulty, you may also email Marissa or Lakia at the email addresses shown on the screen. Marissa and Lakia will also be helping me monitor all of these streams. And by the way, if you have a colleague that would like to join at the last minute, Marissa or Lakia can help with that also. Although he won't be making formal remarks, I do want to share that we have Mike Connor with the Petroleum and Biofuel Statistics team at EIA with us today. I also believe that Mike will be joining the World Board FAS Census Bureau breakout session later this afternoon. We have many attendees and distinguished guests from around the world, including folks from Stats Canada and Mexico's Agricultural Statistics Organization. I would like to share that Dr. Seth Meyer, USDA's new, I'll put that in quotes, chief economist, is on the call today, as well as the ERS administrator, Spiro Stefanu. Both joined, or in Seth's case, rejoined USDA this past year, and we welcome them to this session. I would like to give you a quick tour of the program. Statisticians love to test new ideas, and we're certainly no exception to that. Some of the experienced hands at this meeting will note that we've adjusted the format a bit from previous iterations of this meeting, and look forward to feedback on those changes. In just a minute or two, we'll have the agency representatives deliver some brief remarks providing updates on their program of work. Any questions that get posted from this first session, we'll hold for the breakouts for the main session tomorrow. So in a little less than an hour, we'll host our first of 3 breakout sessions. At 1 p.m. Eastern, you'll have the choice of taking a deeper dive with Mike Lynch and the AMS Market News team, or sitting in with a World Board meteorologist and experts from the Drought Mitigation Center and NOAA on climate information for informed decision making. There'll be a brief break, and then at 2:05, a second set of breakouts will begin. We here at NASS plan to take a deep dive on the grain stocks program, and World Board, FAS, and Census Bureau, as I previously mentioned, will host a breakout on their activities. The sessions today will conclude at 3 p.m. If you're like me and having some trouble deciding which option to join, we hope to lower your fear of missing out, as we'll post the videos of the 4 breakout sessions or breakout options on our website tomorrow morning for your viewing or reviewing pleasure. We'll reconvene tomorrow at noon with a very quick recap of today's sessions and then get into an open Q&A. If you have questions on a particular area that was a focus of a breakout session that you were unable to attend, we encourage you to check out the recorded version before tomorrow at noon, as we may have addressed your question in the breakout. Last, but definitely not least, we have an additional breakout session after our main session tomorrow. One option will focus on NASS modernization, our plans there, and another on recent work at ERS. These are going to be interesting talks, and I really hope you can stay to be a part of them. Okay, back to today. In the reminder email from Marissa you received earlier this week, you should have received an attached file with highlights at each of the participating agencies here today. You may want to take a look at that for additional discussion beyond our panelists' remarks. For each of the panelists, I ask you to introduce yourself and provide some brief remarks. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Lynch at AMS to get us started. Mike?
Well, thank you, Joe. To introduce myself, my name is Mike Lynch, and I'm the director of the Livestock, Poultry, and Grain Market News Division in the Livestock and Poultry program here at AMS. And the mission of AMS is to facilitate the competitive and efficient marketing of agricultural products. Now, here's a few highlights I'd like to share on what we've been doing here in Market News. Many of you in this community are aware of the Livestock Mandatory Reporting Program. That program was scheduled to be reauthorized by Congress last September. It was actually extended, the authority was extended through a continuing resolution at the time. And then in December, when the appropriations bill was passed for this year, it was the authorization was attached to that as an extension. So it's basically extended until September of this year, which gives the livestock and meat industry stakeholders additional time to work out a number of differences on issues to hopefully reach some consensus on some possible legislative improvements to the program to be included in the reauthorization when that happens, between now and September. In the meantime, in our program, we have been busy conducting some outreach to educate producers and stakeholders about the resources available in the market reports that we currently publish, as well as helping with to assist with marketing. We've created some new report user guides that we've posted on our site. A few years ago, we had a couple created for swine and our LMR swine and pork reports and pork cutout. We use that as a model to develop similar overviews or user guides for our LMR slaughter cattle reports and our box beef reports. We've also leveraged one of our resources we have here in the program, the USDA Cattle and Carcass Training Center, which we began a few years ago, which is a partnership with West Texas A&M University, Colorado State University, and the Meat Animal Research Center in Nebraska. We use those to conduct a webinar series last November and December, covering numerous topics like beef grading, physiology of beef production, CME live cattle contracts, the CME cattle and carcass delivery process. And we also have another webinar series coming here in the first week of June, or June 8th, 9th, and 10th, where we're going to provide a panel discussion and overview on our LMR cattle reports and box beef reporting. More information will be available on that as that date gets closer. As you know, the My Market News development has continued. We have several commodity market types and reports that we will be transitioning into My Market News by the end of August. Those include feedstuffs, retail, national feeder cattle summary, bioenergy, international imports and exports, specialty crops, commodities for truck rates, national trends, terminal markets, and shipping point and movement reports. To further enhance the data user experience, AMS will be developing and piloting as a proof of concept, basically at this point, a Market News mobile app for both iPhones and Android phones. It will be developed with many of the same features users come to expect from apps, which includes searching and filtering reports by commodity or market type, report name, dates of reports, ability to share reports with others, subscription to report notifications, location functionality as well. We're going to pilot this initially, with our livestock mandatory reporting report, specifically probably some of our LMR reports and probably auction reports. And then, that once that's developed and up and running, we plan to build that out for the other commodity areas as well. USDA the last few years has been very, I'd say, data driven and looking at different ways to develop, made an investment, I guess I'd say, in the development of dashboard tools to help with data visualization. One of the tools that we've implemented or developed here in our program is our grading dashboard for beef, lamb, and veal. We currently have been reporting that information out that we receive from our colleagues in our quality assessment division. But that is going to be what we've developed as an interactive dashboard. Initially, it was set up to be like an internal management tool where the grading supervisors could monitor grading at plants across the country. And that is, also evolved into a dashboard where we can make some of that information available to the public. They're looking to have 10 years worth of data available on a regional and national basis. That is expected to be launched here in the very near future. And when that is, that should be announced through some sort of a notice to the trade. This fall, Market News is planning our next customer satisfaction survey. We do this survey every 3 years, and I can't say this strongly enough, your input as data users is very important. The results are used to measure what's called a customer satisfaction index, which includes quality of information, customer service, and the reporting of information. The results of these surveys are then used by the agency for budgetary performance measures for service delivery and relevance, as well as in determining future direction and improvements to be made to the USDA market reporting programs. In our AMS Market News breakout session this afternoon, we will be sharing information on our work in reporting international markets, collaboration with other international organizations and countries, an update on my market news development, and some upcoming changes and enhancements to egg and poultry reporting, and of course, answering your questions. And with that, Joe, I will turn it back over to the next speaker.
Hey, thank you. And thanks for attending the Spring Data Users meeting. I'm Spiro Stefano, the administrator of the Economic Research Service, and I joined ERS in August of 2020. As many of you know, ERS has been through a transition over the last few years. We are a small federal statistical agency with significant roles and responsibilities in providing data and analysis about the agricultural sector. In the last 18 months, ERS has hired approximately 150 new staff as we rebuild the agency following the establishment of our new field office in Kansas City, Missouri in the fall of 2019. We have filled almost all of our management positions, along with many of our senior economists, data scientists, publishing, and web management positions. These are folks with significant experience who come from other parts of federal government, academia, industry, and more. They bring fresh new perspectives, ideas, and importantly, the skills and expertise needed to deliver a high-quality research program. We've also hired significant new talent in the form of researchers fresh out of graduate school and just starting their careers. Again, bringing new talent and energy to the agency. Now, we continue, like all of you, to work in a full-time, or many of you, to work in a full-time telework status. We've shipped computer equipment to new hires. We've upgraded equipment for existing staff who need it. We've managed safe ways for staff to obtain credentials needed to access our systems, and provided work-life balance flexibilities to the extent we are able to do so in order to continue meeting our mission. Now, we opened our new facility in Kansas City, Missouri in October 2020, a newly renovated building at 805 Pennsylvania Avenue. While we have not yet fully occupied it, we look forward to the time when we can safely bring our employees together to create the vibrant, stimulating environment that has made ERS a great place to work for decades. An area we've had to address during the pandemic is to figure out how to provide secure access to data, like the Agricultural Resource Management Survey, and the Census of Agriculture in order for our researchers to continue conducting the research and analysis needed to meet our mission. Now, prior to the pandemic, we provided access through our on-site secure data labs. We have been able to transition to secure access through NORC and are exploring other platforms to provide cost-effective access to a dispersed workforce. Now, one of my top priorities is delivering high-quality research and data in a timely manner. Quality means conducting peer review, both internal and external, and ensuring information meets our policy neutrality and agency clearance standards. I am pleased to report that nothing has changed, either due to the pandemic or during the rebuilding of our staff. We have the same standards and are delivering the same high-quality products as we always have. Coming from academia, I've stated many times that there is not a research report or data set that receives more review than our products. Secondly, we must deliver information in a timely manner. In order to be relevant and provide the research, analysis, and data needed by decision makers and the public, our information must be timely. While research does take time, we are working to streamline our publication processes in order to ensure that our reports and other information are delivered as quickly as possible without compromising quality. And finally, we want to make a difference. And to make a difference, you have to have an impact, This means talking to our stakeholders, listening to your concerns and issues and needs, and then quickly pivoting to the topics and research questions that will allow you to do your jobs and have the information you need to make decisions. This is an ongoing iterative process. And right now we are working to identify the topics and issues that are most relevant for the department's priorities. And with that, I look forward to your questions and our discussions over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Packnett. Am I on? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Packnett. I'm the Deputy Administrator in the Global Market Analysis Program area at FAS. And I'm happy to be here with you at yet another data users meeting. There are just very few updates to our databases and systems that I'd like to highlight here. Many of you may already be aware of these, and you may have some other questions later in the program. But the first thing I'll mention is that to recognize the Brexit in Europe, we made changes to our GATS and our PS&D databases earlier this year. In GATS, with the release of January 2021 trade data in March, the EU was now designated as the 27-member post-Brexit group. In GATS, we've retained EU 28 partner group for historical data in that system. For PS&D, we made a joint decision here at USDA to separate the UK from the EU as we roll out our next marketing year data this year. So you'll see that change show up for field crops in May, for livestock and poultry in October, dairy will be in December. With that change, we plan to provide historical data for 5 years for the EU 27 and the UK, going back to 2016-17 up through the current marketing year. USDA decided recently to adopt the WTO definition of agriculture for calculating total agricultural trade. This change was implemented on March 5th with the release of the January 2021 trade data. I don't think many of the folks in this audience usually track the total agricultural trade number, But the new definition, the WTO definition, includes ethanol, distilled spirits, and manufactured tobacco, which were not part of our previous definition here at USDA. We have a lot of information concerning that change linked to our GATS homepage for those who are interested in more information on that. And I want to plug a new publication that we have from FAS, which I don't think we've highlighted for this group in the past, and that is our U.S. Agricultural Export Yearbook. We first published the yearbook last year, and we've recently published the 2020 edition of the yearbook. And this publication is really sort of a year in review for U.S. agricultural trade, and includes total calendar year exports by commodity and destination, including the major drivers that are influencing exports, and as well as the key trade policy and market access issues in our largest agricultural markets. So I encourage you all to take a look at that new publication and see if you find it useful. Within our gain system, we've been able to merge all of our gain reports now dating back to 1995 in the current gain database, and that's allowed us to decommission the legacy search engine that we had up on our webpage. So users can now access all of the gain reports in a single search engine going back to 1995. And finally, I'll just give you a heads up that we're expecting some enhancements and modernizations to our FAS webpage in the coming months. So you should look forward for that. Won't be major changes with regard to the data, but we hope to improve the usability and more prominently feature our API data portal, as well as setting the stage for some future enhancements that'll come down the road. So that's all of the updates I have for you now, and look forward to Q&As later in the program. Thank you.
Hi, this is Brad Carmen. How's everybody doing? I am acting Deputy Administrator for Farm Programs in the Farm Service Agency. Did I get my slide backwards? I probably didn't follow the directions. I'm seeing the writing backwards, but ignore that. So I'm acting Deputy Administrator for Farm Programs in the Farm Service Agency. I've addressed this group many times before. Farm Service Agency is responsible for what people call safety net programs, providing subsidies to producers along with some of our sister agencies, for crop losses, price losses, disaster programs, livestock benefits. We've recently been involved in trade issues, what we call market facilitation program, when other countries increased tariffs on us. We've offered relief to our livestock and crop growers in the United States. We have a couple dozen programs. We spent over $40 billion last year, which was a record amount. So we touch almost all sectors of American agriculture. We are a heavy user of NASS and ERS statistics. We use those statistics to make policy decisions. Most of our authority comes from legislation from the Hill, although some of it comes from the CCC Charter Act. And often in our legislation, the Secretary has discretion on how to implement our programs. And we use the statistics and the research provided our sister agencies, again, mostly NASS and ERS, to provide the Secretary with options on how to implement programs. So one, we're a heavy user of other agencies' data. And also, we collect a lot of data. And some of you have been interested in that over the years, and particularly one of the things that I know people have been interested in in order for producers to participate in our programs, they need to provide us an acreage report for all their acreage on the farm. So we have that at the individual producer level. That is not available publicly because there's PII information, personally identifiable information, although we aggregate it at the county level and make that available, put it on our website. And people find it very useful for comparing our data with NASS's data. And NASS also looks at that data before they publish their data. So for the most part, the data we collect and the data that the surveys from the NASS are fairly compatible. They're not exactly the same because our data only is collected from program participants, and not everybody participates in FSA programs. And what we've been getting into lately, the past few years, we've been putting a lot of our data on, making that available to the public in dashboards. So for each of our programs, we have a dashboard. It's updated, some of it daily, some of it weekly, with the major statistic, number of participants, how many dollars we're putting out, and other statistics. And the graphics aren't as good as what NASS and ERS puts out, but we're getting a lot closer on there. We are using some sophisticated tools to allow people to slice and dice it in different ways. So I'll be around for questions later. And then the next speaker, I think Mark.
That's right. That's me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Jakanowski. I'm the chair of the World Agricultural Outlook Board. Let's go ahead one slide. I have a few slides I'm going to walk through here. So the World Board, I think, as most of you know, we are known primarily for one a very important USDA product, and that is the WASDE report. We put it out monthly, World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates report. We're a very small agency, but we work with experts from across USDA, and I would argue, just selfishly, that I think we have one of the best teams in USDA who work on this report every month. And the effort is led by six individual ICEC chairs. That's Interagency Commodity Estimates Committee chairs who run the process of pulling in information from across USDA to come up with the USDA consensus view of the supply and demand conditions for each of the major commodities. And then, of course, we also have our great team of meteorologists on staff, and I am assisted in managing the agency with a deputy chair. So let's go ahead one slide here again. Just a few things real quick in terms of staffing. Again, as a small agency, I think it's worth noting the few recent changes here in terms of staffing. Since the last time I gave this presentation, Bill Chambers, he formerly was the Food Grains Chair. Now he is the World Agricultural Outlook Board Deputy Chairman. Mark Simone has been promoted to the Food Grains Chair position that Bill had previously held. And we also are very pleased to have hired Justin Cho. He's our newest feed grains economist. He works closely with Mike Jewison in leading up the feed grains analysis. And I should also note, for what it's worth, Joe mentioned earlier, Seth Meyer is with us today. Of course, the World Board is actually part of the Office of Chief Economist, so we are very pleased to have Seth back, kind of leading the agency. And as most of you probably know, Seth, prior to me, Seth held my position as World Board Chair. So it's really great to have him back. Okay, let's go ahead. One more slide. Just a quick update. One thing that's worth that I want to point out to all the participants. We recently, kind of by popular demand, we put on our website a file that contains all of the previous WASDE data going back 10 years. So basically all of the information reported in each WASDE since 2010. We consider this really, it's a research database more than anything else, and I think it's important that people understand what the data is and what the data is not. And what it is, very specifically, is the actual data that was reported in each WASDE that was released each month going back 10 years. But so what it is not is that it does not contain any revisions to the balance sheets that could have subsequently been made after the WASDE was released. For the official supply and demand estimates, including all of the subsequent revisions, users still should be directed to the PS&D data portal or database. So anyway, we hope that people can get into this data, dig into it, play around with it. It's certainly an interesting data set, but should not be considered, the current official estimates of any of these supply and demand factors as they stand right now. We have the disclaimer up there on the website, so I hope people will understand that and make use of this data for what it is. Okay, let's go ahead with the next slide. The other thing I just wanted to point out real quick, in addition to the WASDE report, we also, within the World Board and Office of Chief Economists generally, we are responsible for organizing the annual Agricultural Outlook Forum. Now, this year, as you know, was extremely unique, really a once-in-a-100-year type of event, pandemic. Typically, we have this event in person in the Crystal City Marriott. This year, like everyone else in the world, really, we had to go virtual. So we had a steep learning curve, figuring out how to put a large conference together in a virtual format. But we did it. And the theme this year, I think fittingly, was building on innovation, a pathway to resilience, and we tried to emphasize the concept of resilience throughout our forum. As usual, we had more than 100 speakers, and everything, of course, was online. And we learned that there are in fact several benefits to having the forum online. One of which is that the entire event, it remains online. You can go back and view it, any sessions you want. Everything will be up there for 1 year. You can access it directly from our website. So that's one big benefit. And the other benefit is just the much broader reach in terms of attendance that we had by going virtual. Let's go ahead one slide if we can. And this year we had nearly 4,500 participants. And importantly, the biggest category of new participants were non-government public participants, from literally spread from across the world and across the country. Obviously, without having travel costs and having to deal with those kinds of logistics, it really lowered the cost of participation. The conference itself was free. So the cost of participation made it very attractive, and as a result, I think we really expanded our outreach. Let's go ahead one more slide. And with that, we are already thinking about next year's forum. The dates are set, so put it on your calendar, February 24th and 25th. And of course, there's no way of knowing where we will be with regard to the pandemic by next February, but given the the success that we had this year in going virtual, we are planning on having next year's conference have a virtual presence, either entirely virtual or at least hybrid, meaning that the participation online will be possible. So we're going to be working on that over the next several months, and hope that you put it on your calendar, and hope to see you next February, participating in that. And with that, that is all I have. I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll keep this brief so we can move on to the main event here. I'm Joseph DeCampo with the U.S. Census Bureau. As always, we want to thank our colleagues at the USDA for inviting us to be a part of this event. I'm the section supervisor over foods and textiles in the International Trade Indicator Microanalysis branch of the Economic Indicators Division. Our group analyzes the underlying import and export data that goes into the monthly International Trade in Goods and Services press release, the FT900, which is a joint release with the Bureau of Economic Analysis. As a plug, we'll be releasing our March data on May 4th. And as always, all of our trade data and historic data is available on USA Trade Online for free. Thank you. Next up.
Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Karestis, and I am the Director of Statistics Division at NASS. I'm going to quickly update you on items that are new at NASS this past year. So, beginning with crops, we plan to issue methodology and quality measure reports for major releases. Our first one for grain stocks was issued at 3 p.m. on April the 8th. In the future, this report will be issued annually following the January grain stocks report. You should see more of these reports coming this year, covering such items as acreage and yield. Next is an item we touched on briefly at our last meeting. Corn and soybean acres remaining to be planted was published for the first time in the acreage report last June. Corn and soybean acres remaining to be harvested was published in the Crop Production 2020 Summary in January of 2021. We plan to continue publishing these items in the future. County estimates. We presented those at our last meeting as well, but I just wanted to remind everyone of the changes we made. We are now modeling our county estimates using survey and administrative data, no longer publishing districts, and we have a new publication rule. This allows us to publish measures of uncertainty and more counties. Also, eliminating districts aligns and standardizes crops, livestock economics, and census publications. Moving to the economics, environmental and demographics area. This past year, we issued several reports for census areas, organics, horticulture, and lastly, typology, which we just issued January 2021. We also had a joint project with AMS, the National Farmers Market Manager Survey, and a joint project with ERS on irrigation organizations. The last item for this area is farm labor. It was reinstated, and the report that was originally scheduled for last fall was released February 11th, 2021. All future farm labor reports will be issued on schedule and can be found on the ASB calendar. I just also would like to mention when I'm talking about economics, environmental, and demographics is that we have a new branch chief for that area. His name is Tony Dorn. Tony has been a deputy in our field offices. He worked detail in Puerto Rico. He worked in this area as a section head. He also worked as a section head in the livestock branch, and he did some work in the front office. So Tony brings lots of experience to the branch chief position, and we're very happy to have them in that job. Looking at livestock, methodology and quality measure reports for hogs and pigs, cattle on feed, and milk production are issued annually, and this will continue. The reports for catfish, honey, mink, trout, sheep, and goats, they're being improved for methodology and quality measure reports, and they will be released during 2021. And we're also planning some new reports for methodology and quality measures, and that's for chicken and eggs and for honeybee colonies, and those reports will be issued annually as well. Turning to the Census of Agriculture, NASS began content testing in the fall of 2020 and will continue this process through 2021. We are conducting these dry runs for development and enhancing data processing systems that will be used for the 2022 census. Also, NASS continues to work on efforts to improve online data reporting. Just a brief overview on modernization. We continue to work to get NASS questionnaires online to streamline data collection. We also have ongoing research to make better use of previously reported data. This will help to ease respondent burden. We are continuously working to improve our website as well as our public database. In the NASS session tomorrow, these items and more will be covered, but I just want to let our data users know that we have listened and we continue to take feedback as we work to replace QuickStats with a new public database for NASS in the not too distant future. And of course, as you all well know, all NASS reports are available on our website. And of course, you can always call or email us if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Well, you never know exactly how the timing is going to work out when you do this and make some changes, but it looks like we came in pretty close to the time we were hoping for. And by the way, Dan, you know, it makes an old survey methodologist, it makes my heart sing when you talk about those methodology and quality measure reports. So we are working on getting more of those out, and I think they are worthy of your review as key data users. So I do want to thank each of our panelists, and I hope this got everyone thinking of the questions you wish to raise later this afternoon and tomorrow. And by the way, we have put some links, I think, in the chat. There's been a couple of questions about links, so we did go ahead and address those. Anyway, we want to conclude this main session for today and encourage you to join a breakout session starting in about 14 minutes by my clock or so. And so the links to the first two sessions should be in your chat or about to be in your chat or in your registration email, I should say. So if you're having any difficulty, you can email Marissa or Lakia, as we mentioned at the top of the call. We want to thank everybody and hope to see you in a breakout session later this afternoon, and of course, again tomorrow for the open Q&A and then the breakout sessions after that main session. We hope good to see you all, and we'll see you in the breakout session. Thanks.